A drier evening. Overnight rain at times across northern and some western areas, dry in the south and east, but some fog patches developing in southern England. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Hello, I'm Alistair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alistair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me. Noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's just gone 1 minute after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. Now, this show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. And comedian Leo Curse.
I never went away.
Before we get started, he is a curse. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 4. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Labour is calling on Boris Johnson to urgently explain his meetings with Sue Gray to discuss the so-called Partygate report into COVID rule-breaking. It's understood that they met at least once while the report was being drafted. Labour's deputy leader, Angela Rayner, says people deserve to know the truth. Former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt told GB News he wouldn't have introduced lockdowns in the first place.
Would I have done things differently during the pandemic if I had been Prime Minister and won that contest in 2019? For sure. Would I have made some of the mistakes that Boris made? I don't think I would have because of my experience as Health Secretary. but I would have made different mistakes. I think it's impossible to go through something as extreme as a pandemic and get everything right.
Well, unions are warning of potentially the biggest rail strike in modern history. 40,000 staff from Network Rail and 15 train companies are voting on action over pay. It could create serious challenges in keeping goods moving and supermarket shelves stocked. Supply chain expert Richard Bartlett told GB News it will be bad for the consumer.
Supply chain for the consumer is everything. The whole chain is working. If that chain's not working, or there's a delay, or there's extra costs, there's delays at ports, there's delays everywhere else, it has a huge effect because these are normally ordered within a period of time. They're not ordered tomorrow for next week. They're ordered in advance. And if that advance rule of 3 months starts to slow down, it has a huge effect. And we're certainly seeing that. We're certainly seeing price increases. There's no question about that.
Former Conservative leader Sir Iain Duncan Smith has called for benefits to be boosted in line with inflation to protect the public from mounting living costs. He says the use of rebates and discretionary funds represent a step in the wrong direction for tackling poverty. The government is already handing out £150 council tax rebates for many homes and will take £200 off energy bills from October. Gavin Rice from the Centre for Social Justice told GB News the government should also boost universal credit.
We're suggesting is something that's a bit more modest, which is just you increase universal credit in line with the rising cost of living. That would be less expensive than the £20 uplift. It would not be, as it were, an absolute increase to generosity, but it would just ensure that the very poorest in our society have got enough coming in that they can cover these extraordinary rises in the cost of electricity and gas.
The Foreign Secretary will meet with a top Democrat later over government plans to scrap parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol. It follows a warning from the US House Speaker that Congress won't support a free trade deal with the UK if it discards the post-Brexit agreement. New legislation is expected in early June. Police chiefs are planning to apologise over allegations of racism and discrimination within their ranks. In a report by the Police Chiefs Council, due to be published next week, leaders will commit to being institutionally anti-racist. The report highlights how police powers are being disproportionately applied to black people. It also admits that having only 2 black officers reach Chief Constable or Assistant Commissioner rank in policing's history is a failure. Russia has claimed victory in the battle for Mariupol after Ukrainian soldiers in the final stronghold surrendered. It's now launched a major offensive in Luhansk, where shelling continues as Russian forces press for control of Ukraine's Donbas region. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has declared a travel ban on 963 Americans, including President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and CIA Chief William Burns. Boris Johnson has congratulated Labour's Anthony Albanese on his election as Prime Minister of Australia. Outgoing PM Scott Morrison has conceded defeat despite millions of votes yet to be counted. He's also announced that he'll step down as leader of the Liberal Party after losing ground to environment and climate-focused parties like the Greens and Independents. Mr Albanese says his goal is to unite Australia.
Australian people have voted for change. I am humbled by this victory, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to serve as the 31st Prime Minister of Australia. My Labor team will work every day to bring Australians together, and I will lead a government worthy of the people of Australia.
Well, this is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's return to Nana.
Good afternoon. So it's fast approaching 8 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Nicola Sturgeon, before she even opens her mouth, you know what she's going to say. My mother can't stand her. Is she still here? I just can't stand that woman. Break up the union, break up the union. I mean, it appears that Nicola Sturgeon will work with anyone as long as they support breaking up the United Kingdom. Now, when Sinn Féin became the largest party in the Northern Ireland Assembly this month, she couldn't wait. She held talks with their Vice President, Michelle O'Neill, at her official residence, Bute House in Edinburgh. Both women are at the head of devolved governments, both looking for referendums, Sinn Féin on a united Ireland, and we all know what Nicola Sturgeon wants. She's already tried the angle of Brexit, saying that Scotland voted to stay and that the situation has changed to justify her rehashing her so-called once-in-a-lifetime referendum. That didn't work. Then, of course, COVID came along, and at the beginning she seemed to be making all the right calls, didn't she? Repeatedly upstaging Boris Johnson, going bigger and bolder. When he had 3 tiers or levels, she had 5, anticipating his every move and going first, so it appeared that she was making decisive calls. She could do no wrong. She stood at that lectern preaching like a pope to his followers. She even started throwing money around, giving extras of support to those who were unable to work during the pandemic. She seemed to have a never-ending supply of cash, a lot coming from the taxpayers of the United Kingdom. Unfortunately for her, her lockdown madness and mask control got the better of her, a bit like Mark Drakeford, remember that? In Wales, when he tried to decide which things were essential items that supermarkets could sell during his power-craved lockdown. Sadly, his list didn't include things like tampons. He's a man, so why would he think of that? His plan would actually have shut down pharmacies and off-licences and actually crushed the local economy. Bless him. He thought he was helping. Sadly, the power got to Sturgeon's head, which was enough to give the Scottish people a peek into a world where Nicola Sturgeon ruled, and it wasn't pretty. Her latest meeting with Ms O'Neill, she claims, was purely to discuss the cost of living crisis and the Northern Ireland Protocol. Told the other one. When asked if she considered Sinn Féin to be an ally, she said, "Not really. The circumstances and factors in Northern Ireland are different to the circumstances and factors in Scotland, and I think we should be careful about drawing comparisons that don't exist." But then she argued that both parts of the UK were being forced to deal with the, I quote, "very negative consequences of Brexit, despite their populations voting against it, and this has raised fundamental questions about the Westminster system of governance." Code for break up the union. So whilst those in Scotland are suffering with the same cost of living crisis, created partly by the politicians and in particular unnecessarily long lockdowns, self-obsessed career politicians who can't think beyond their own short-sighted vision, Nicola Sturgeon is still going on about breaking up the union. So before we get started, let's get stuck into the debate. Here's what else is coming up today. Now, this week is Dementia Action Week, and the focus this year is on recognising the signs. So at 5, in my difficult conversation, I'll be speaking to Eamonn Dobbin. Now, he's 59 and living with dementia. And in the UK alone, currently 900,000 people are known to be diagnosed with the condition, meaning that more than half of all adults know someone with it. And with diagnosis rates at a record 5-year low, this week is all about the early warning signs, often mistaken for just getting old. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Boris Johnson has said that he'll scrap the ban on buy one, get one free junk food deals to help poorer families during the cost of living crisis. Now, the ban was originally put in place to combat the ever-growing obesity epidemic, but yesterday, celebrity chef Jamie Oliver, he popped his head above the parapet again after losing all his restaurants because his food wasn't that great and nobody was going. Actually, no, it was more COVID. He protested outside Downing Street against lifting the ban. According to the report from Cancer Research UK, obese people will outnumber those of a healthy weight within 5 years, causing far bigger problems in the future. But are bans on adverts and deals the right way to tackle the crisis? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Palace sources claim that the Queen and the royal family has secretly opened their doors to Ukrainian refugees. Not so secret now, though, because we all know. Royals have also made substantial cash donations, but insist that they want to keep their efforts to help under wraps. That's all coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Welcome again to my panel. Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and comedian Leo Kurth. Oh, that's me as well, sorry. First, I want to discuss the story I was talking about. Now, I'm going to start with you, Leo, obviously, because Nicola Sturgeon, she's back again. She's found another angle to break up the union.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. She's meeting with Sinn Féin, who essentially want to reunify an island politically, but the SNP want to break up an island. They want to take Scotland out of the United Kingdom. So you know, there seems to be a loggerheads. The one thing they've got in common is a general antipathy towards England and the United Kingdom. So that's the unifying thing there. But I mean, a lot of people have been criticising Sturgeon for getting into bed with a party that does contain, I think we can say this without any controversy, murderers and terrorists. But I think it's a success of democracy that, you know, these things are now settled at the ballot box instead of using guns and bombs.
What do you think, Calvin?
Shows how desperate this woman is that she's willing to work with terrorists, enemies of the United Kingdom, in order to get her own way. The people of her country said, no, we do not want independence from the United Kingdom. She said it was once in a generation question. She keeps asking it.
Well, she would argue that they said yes, didn't she? Because in Scotland, they had a majority for Remain, although the referendum was for the United Kingdom. That's
the Leave referendum. I mean the referendum to leave the United Kingdom, not the European Union. People said, we want to remain.
Yes.
So she should get on with it, and I don't know why they keep voting her in. That's the problem.
Well, they haven't got anybody else.
One issue.
Well, it's the failure of the Labour Party, I would say, ultimately, who used to have a sort of stranglehold on Scotland alongside the SNP. We're only a small little party sort of clutching on the side like the Liberal Democrats. But unfortunately, also the failure of the Conservative Party. However, they never really have a strong foothold in Scotland, so it's really a failure of any sort of presence.
It's a failure of devolution. So having a devolved parliament has just created a satellite parliament that, I mean, it's supposed to be. Ironically, a devolved parliament in Scotland was supposed to create a sort of caretaker government that focuses on local issues and listens to the people. And instead, it's just a single issue party, you know, like UKIP, who, you know, they share a lot of similarities with, you know, like the British National Party, who they share a name with. It's the Scottish National Party. It's just the northern British version of the BNP. So, you know, they've got this single issue that they keep banging the drum. They attack England, they attack Westminster, and while receiving incredible largesse from Westminster's coffers. I think under the Barnett formula, it's over £15 billion a year extra that Scotland gets.
Well, she's not highlighting any of that, and she's also, I mean, when they first started talking about independence, she didn't mention about the money either. I mean, they can't be governed by the Bank of England, so what money are they going to use? There's all these little questions that she sort of evades. Then I remember at one point she said, well, we'll use sterling for a while, and then it's like, well, hang on, no, I mean, you can't have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, either you're in, out, shake it all about, we'll do the... No, you know, if you genuinely want to leave, then these are the things that come with leaving. It's a bit like us with Brexit. We've left the EU, so there are elements of it that they will not give us simply for the fact that we've left.
But devolution was a massive mistake. It does not work. And the problem we're seeing, you know, a lot of our viewers always bring this up when we have this topic, is that what about English representation? If we've got Scottish representation, Welsh, Northern Irish representation, where is the English representation? And I know you could say, well, it's all based in Westminster, but it doesn't work in that way, does it? So we either need all of the nations to be devolved or none of them. And I would prefer to go for none of them. I would prefer a one-nation situation. In fact, it might solve the problem in Ireland as well. We could have a one united Ireland under British rule. I'd go with that.
But I think it's going to be very difficult to get that toothpaste back in the tube, though. You know, unpicking devolution, even though it's a great idea, I think it's going to foster a lot of resentment. And it's not like Scotland's a country that's running short on resentment. But yeah, I think Scottish independence, realistically, I don't think Sturgeon actually wants Scottish independence. It would be a disaster for Scotland, but more particularly, it would be a disaster for the SNP. All of a sudden, their one issue that they bang the drum about would be gone, and they'd be judged on the real issues: health, education, the infrastructure, transport, all these things that they've been absolutely failing on. Scotland's just plummeting down the league tables for health, for education. I mean, you go to Glasgow now, I can barely recognise it. It's like going to Mogadishu, but with worse weather.
Have you ever been to Mogadishu?
No, but I've seen some photos.
I thought I'd ask. Yeah, Mogadishu might be slightly better, actually. No, but I've never been to Mogadishu. I've been to Scotland. I absolutely love Scotland. I think it's beautiful. It's such a gorgeous place, and I absolutely want it to be part of the United Kingdom. Is Nicola Sturgeon doing anything that is positive and constructive within the SNP for, if you ignore the issue of independence, that you could look at them and think, oh, they're doing well?
I genuinely can't find anything in the SNP in any of their practical application of politics and their management of the country. The legislation they're bringing through, it's all negative.
Healthcare's gone down, education's gone down. She was an absolute tyrant throughout the pandemic.
Oh, wasn't she?
Civil liberties argument. She's been atrocious.
Yeah.
So maybe the question should be, look, do you want an independent Scotland or do you want a British Scotland? And if they say we want a British Scotland, then we should get rid of devolution. Then maybe that's the way to do it. Say, we'll have one united kingdom, or we can have separate countries. Which way do you want it?
Well, the thing is, though, they won't want to be ruled by Westminster, would they? If you said one united kingdom, how would you fix it?
Westminster includes Scottish MPs. Yeah. So, and we've got to remember, before the SNP made Scotland a parochial, inward-looking country, Scots had a huge influence in the civil service, in Parliament, and we've had so many Scottish or Scottish-educated prime ministers, like Tony Blair, Gordon Brown. I think it would be good to see Scotland take more. We used to have such a strong role in the United Kingdom, and now we've got a much smaller role in the United Kingdom, but we control a lot of what is essentially, a golf course with a whiskey shop on.
Well, the irony is that then she wants to join the EU. So it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, foreign rule.
Doesn't
quite
make
literally.
sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Backwards.
Well, anyway, what do you think? If you want to join us, I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Now, last week, Boris Johnson said that he would scrap his ban on buy one, get one free junk food deals to help poorer families during this cost of living crisis. Now, the ban was originally put in place to combat the ever-going situation. But yesterday, celebrity chef Jamie Oliver protested outside Downing Street. He's got a Twitter follower of millions. There are only about 200 people out there, so well done, Jamie. The Prime Minister, he wanted the Prime Minister to lift the ban, but he wanted the Prime Minister to bring down the ban again. But does he have a point at all? According to a report from the Cancer Research UK, obese people will outnumber those of healthy weight within 5 years, causing lots of problems. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk. Tell me what you think. You can also tweet @GBNews, and there's a poll up right now asking the question, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Cast your vote, but first let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and it's looking cloudy and damp in the northwest, but some evening sunshine further southeast. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England looks to be largely dry this evening with some cloud cover, but a bit of sunshine here and there. Temperatures in Plymouth around 15 Celsius. More bright or sunny spells across London and southeast England this evening, and still quite warm at 7 p.m. A few showers across mid and west Wales this evening, but generally a dry picture here with the best of any sunshine towards Cardiff and Newport. It's largely a dry picture for the Midlands too. That said, there will be a good deal of cloud around, but temperatures still between 18 and 16 degrees. Much of northeast England and Yorkshire should also be dry, with the best of any sunshine towards the east coast. A few splashes of rain is possible over the Pennines. It's generally cloudier skies to be expected over Scotland, with occasional light rain across the south of the country. More persistent wet weather will be moving into western areas. That same area of rain will blow to the northwest of Northern Ireland, but for much of the country, it will be a drier evening. Overnight rain at times across northern and some western areas, dry in the south and east, but some fog patches developing in southern England. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon. So it's coming up to 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. You can even watch us on YouTube. I'm Nana Akua. Now, before the break, we were discussing breaking up the union. Let's see what you've been saying. Brian says, let the Scots go, then we'll see how long Sturgeon lasts. Alex says, I'm fed up too. Sturgeon should have lost her job on numerous occasions. If we had an English National Party, they would be banned for being a racist organisation. So why are they not? William says the SNP and Sinn Féin, IRA, have been swapping in terms for decades, and Nicola Sturgeon knows that. Well, that's true. Good point. Thank you for that. Keep all those thoughts coming. But, of course, now it's time for the Great British Debate, and I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Now, Boris Johnson has said that he's going to scrap the ban on buy one, get one free junk food deals and advertising before 9 p.m. to help poorer families during the cost of living crisis. Now, this ban was originally put in place to combat the ever-growing obesity crisis. But what do you think? Is that the way to do it? Is banning things and advertising? Are we that stupid that we'll watch an advert and then eat the food? Yesterday, celebrity chef Jamie Oliver protested outside Downing Street against the lifting of the ban during the protest. He said, to use the cost of living as an excuse is wrong. It's completely unfair. We want to put child health first. The strategy was looking world-class, and now it doesn't. It's our job to put it all back together again and make sure that we can build a better future for our kids. Does Jamie have a point? Would this ban be of any significance, or is this the wrong approach altogether? So there's been huge research. Cancer Research UK said that obese people will outnumber healthy weight people within 5 years. So what do you think? Is he right? What's the best way to prevent a future crisis? So that's what I'm asking for this Great British Debate. Is the government tackling obesity correctly? So joining me now is the chair of the National Obesity Forum, Tam Fry. Tam, welcome. Thank you. It's really good to see you. Now, first of all, the ban. What is the relevance? What's the reasoning for having a ban like that, in your view?
Well, there's no reason. And the really important thing is that William Hague, who was one time leader of the Conservative Party, has called this issue morally indefensible. It's got no economic sense to it at all, because these bog-offs, according to the Department of Health itself, leads to overconsumption and therefore more money being spent on food than is necessary. And we're 20% over what we should be in terms of what we're eating, and these bog-offs are just going to make it worse, and therefore they should be cancelled.
You think so? Because some people would say that, look, it's human nature. People will buy things and eat things. You're never going to stop people from doing that. So why? Surely there's no place for the government to be involved in this sort of...
Well, I think the interesting thing is also today the news that Tesco has decided that Johnson is wrong. So the Tesco are now flying in the face of the government strategy, because actually Tesco, from the business point of view, know that the bog-offs are good business, but they're more responsible than that. They're saying certainly it's adding to the obesity problem, particularly with children, and therefore we're going to stop it. And I hope that a lot of people follow Tesco's lead.
Well, I think Sainsbury's are also doing something like that as well. But, you know, once again, though, people will... Look, I mean, I used to train people in terms of fitness and health and everything else like that. I'd train people who were overweight, people who were obese. And the problem wasn't, they were basically eating junk food, but me saying banning something or banning adverts or something like that wouldn't really have an impact on what they will do. They'll still do the same thing. So I don't really see the relevance of the government being involved on this particular level.
Well, the government has got to do something because, unfortunately, since 2020, when Johnson introduced his long-awaited strategy, things have just got worse and worse and worse. I mean, children, which is my particular issue, the obesity level's gone up by 4%. Now, 4% was 4% more than any year since 2020. So, therefore, if you will, they've got to do something because the cost of the whole operation is now unbelievable. £58 billion a year we spend on obesity and diabetes and the other related problems. So action is needed. We've had 25 years of messages about people behaving responsibly and eating properly and choosing and this and that and the other thing. It just hasn't worked. So we've got to try something now immediately. Johnson's got a problem because he promised everybody that he would halve childhood obesity by the year 2030. He doesn't have a chance of doing that. And that's not just me saying that, that's the National Audit Office who looked at the strategy and said it is not fit for purpose.
So the strategy of his strategy is not fit for purpose. So the strategy of banning junk food ads before 9 o'clock and also banning bog-offs is actually a good strategy, you would say?
I think that's a good strategy. We've got to try it. I mean, in the end, I may be proven wrong, but I doubt it because, in fact, people wouldn't advertise if they didn't think that it would have a big effect. So cutting out the advertising is actually knocking off one of those hurdles which people have to get over, and hopefully they will start choosing wisely proper food.
Well, let me have a chat with Lucy Barrister. Now, Lucy Barrister, she's a psychologist. She's there on the line. Let's see what she has to say. Now, Lucy, Tam says that he seems to think that actually it's a good idea to have the ban and that Boris should actually keep that ban, and people like Tesco and also Sainsbury's are acting responsibly by ensuring that these bog-offs don't happen. Well, is that right in terms of the psychology? I'm thinking somebody who's overweight isn't going to take any notice of that.
Well, there is also the possibility of the reverse psychology, which is that the more you tell somebody not to eat a certain thing or not to behave in a certain way, that's the very time when they're going to think, this is what I want to do. And sometimes that's why diets don't work, because they're too restrictive. They end up making foods sound very forbidden and very naughty. And at that point, then people think, oh, well, actually, yes, I would like to give in to temptation. Far more importantly, is around education. And that's where the government could be doing more. It could be actually creating a whole generation of people who know how to value food, know where it comes from, know how to cook it, prepare it, and actually can understand the enjoyment of cooking food. And the irony is that we're a nation of cookery food program watchers. So they're very, very cheap programs to make and people love watching them, but they don't necessarily translate that into their own behaviour. But the problem is that
so
for
Lucy,
quite a lot of people...
Yeah, so hang on a minute. So let me just get this straight. So in your view, banning, so this ban, Boris, was he right or was he wrong to lift that ban in your view?
I still want to make sure that it isn't easy to buy really dreadful food. And that's why the ban is probably very useful. And that's why people like Tesco and Sainsbury's have actually said, this is what's going to help our nation going forward.
In your view, though, do you think that that ban psychologically will work for people who are overweight or obese? Do you think that that ban...
It's just too complicated. The problem is that eating issues are way more complicated than saying if we just got rid of this one thing, then everything would be OK. Because disordered eating...
So do you think the government are approaching it in the right way by initially trying to ban things, banning adverts and 2-for-1 offers? Would you say that is correct?
They definitely have to eliminate the temptation, but then at that point you then have to look at the supermarkets and say, how come every time there's a supermarket checkout you're filling the aisles along the side with really unhealthy food?
Well, why couldn't they do... Well, they could keep the bog-offs but do it on healthy food. Listen, Lucy, I want to get back to Tam. Thank you very much for your thoughts. That's Lucy Beresford. She's a broadcaster and a psychotherapist. Tam, she's sort of partially saying that is part of the solution, but there's a lot more to go.
Well, she made two very important points. First of all is education. People are woefully mal-educated about food. What is good food? They don't know where it comes from. They don't know how to grow it. And really problematically, they don't know how to cook it. You and I cook, I'm sure, but there are millions of houses around the country that don't have a workable kitchen, don't have a kitchen table, and they rely on processed food, which is unhealthy, in order to survive. And so you've got a huge job to do in terms of teaching children young enough so that they get the good habits and hopefully not the bad habits while they're still in their very informative years.
We've been talking about this for years, though, haven't we? And nothing's really happening. It just doesn't make any sense, the whole banning thing. How about the manufacturers? Why are they not tackling them?
Well, the manufacturers are there to make money, and they know very well that it's the cheaper food which will sell well, because, of course, with the cost of living problem that we have at the moment, people will go for the cheap option, and they are onto a good thing. But Sainsbury's and Tesco have bucked that trend.
Well, listen, Tam, thank you so much for coming in and talking to me about that. That is Tam Fry. He's there giving us all the information. He's the chair of the Obesity Forum. Right, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, of course, the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Conservative commentator Calvin Robertson and comedian Leo Kearse. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thanks, Nana. It's 4:33. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Now, Labour is calling on Boris Johnson to urgently explain his meeting with Sue Gray regarding the so-called Partygate report. It's understood the two have met at least once to discuss COVID rule-breaking while the report was being drafted. Unions are warning of potentially the biggest rail strike in modern history as 40,000 staff members from Network Rail and 15 train companies vote on action over pay. Network sources say it could create serious challenges in keeping goods moving and supermarket shelves stocked. Former Conservative leader Sir Iain Duncan Smith has called for benefits to be boosted in line with inflation to shield against mounting living costs. He says rebates and discretionary funds represent a step in the wrong direction for tackling poverty, arguing it would be better to uplift universal credit. Russia has claimed victory in the battle for Mariupol after Ukrainian soldiers in the final stronghold surrendered. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has declared a travel ban on 963 Americans, including President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and CIA Chief William Burns. And outgoing Prime Minister Scott Morrison has conceded defeat in Australia's national elections, despite millions of votes yet to be counted. Boris Johnson congratulated Labour's incoming Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. Mr Albanese says his goal is to unite the country.
Australian people have voted for change. I am humbled by this victory, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to serve as the 31st Prime Minister of Australia. My Labor team will work every day to bring Australians together, and I will lead a government worthy of the people of Australia.
We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Stay with us. Nana will be back in a moment.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So it's just coming up to 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it is time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Last week, Boris Johnson said that he's going to scrap this ban on buy one, get one free on junk food deals and a 9 p.m. watershed for sugary snacks to help poorer families during the cost of living crisis. Now, this was originally put in place, hopefully to sort out the obesity situation. And yesterday, celebrity Jamie Oliver, he jumped on the bandwagon as well and started protesting outside Downing Street against the Prime Minister lifting this ban. And during the protest yesterday, this is what Jamie Oliver said. To use the cost of living as an excuse is wrong. It's completely unfair. We want to put child health first. The strategy was looking world class, and now it doesn't. It's our job to put it all back together again and make sure that we can build a better future. Does he have a point? According to research from Cancer Research UK, obese people will apparently outnumber those of us of healthy weight within the next 5 years. So what do you think? What is the best way to help prevent a future crisis? So for this Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? Well, let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by Calvin Robinson. He's a Conservative commentator. And also Leo Kearse, comedian I use lightly.
Ooh, made it funny.
Calvin, what do you think of this?
Why is it the government's job? What's it got to do with the government? I think at this point, people know the difference. We are all educated, and that's all we can do, educate. People know a plate of chips is going to get you fatter than a salad. People make a choice, and being fat is a choice. I'm going to say that.
Unless, of course, you've got something like Cushing's or a disease.
Very few people have health conditions that affect their weight.
That's true.
And that we have to understand that they do, and that's fair enough. But for the most part, it's a personal choice. And people should have that right to choose whether they want another chocolate bar or not. It's not the government's role to say otherwise. It's not our role to say otherwise. You know, we're sitting on the panel, all three of us have chosen not to be fat. We could have chosen the opposite and eaten more burgers. Education, discipline, personal responsibility.
Leo.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Calvin, although I do think in this case, I mean, marketing sugary and high-fat foods to children. I mean, we don't let people market cigarettes to children. We don't let people market crack cocaine to children. You know,
it's legal, isn't it?
There's yeah, exactly. It's illegal. We have laws and rules to protect people from their own impulses.
But the food is legal.
So I do need to caveat. There is a difference because you're right to raise that. You know, it's a choice for adults. If a child is fat, that is a child abuse situation. Yeah, that's their parents' responsibility.
So you think that an overweight child is an abuse?
There should be no such thing as an obese child. There should be no such thing.
Once you hit 18, you can decide to eat Krispy Kremes instead of salad. Up until then, you know, I agree with Calvin. You know, it can be it's poor parenting. Yeah. Also, I mean, some parents, you know, work so hard and have so few hours to prepare and cook food. You know, they want convenience food, and convenience food isn't always the healthiest thing. So I think maybe education around, you know, if you make a chickpea stew with like aubergine and canned tomatoes, it's very cheap, very nutritious, very tasty, much nicer than having some chips. Even if the kids scream, Daddy, I want chips, you know, don't listen to them.
No, be the adult, be the parent.
Yeah, be the parent. Lay down some rules.
So you think that people who are overweight, they haven't taken leave of their senses, they're just eating too much?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of issues right now that we've got in this country. So we've had lockdown, so we've locked people indoors right next to the fridge for a year and a half, which seemed a nonsense thing to do, considering obesity is a risk factor in COVID. People should have been down the gym or out running. So that was ridiculous. That's, obviously contributed to everybody being gargantuan land whales at the moment. And the other issue is our society normalises and fetishises fatties. So if you go on Instagram, there's all these plus-size models. Oh, healthy at any size. Oh, big is beautiful. No, it's not. Listen. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I'm beholding it, and it's not beautiful. If you're fat, you shouldn't be on the cover of, some glamour magazine, Sports Illustrated or whatever.
Some people would argue, though, that what you are doing by doing that is reflecting the reality of life rather than sugarcoating it, pardon the pun.
I don't want reality.
No, it's right. It normalises bad behaviour.
Yeah, but it's
it
a reality.
normalises obesity. That's
But actually, looking at it, obesity, it seems to be the norm. So it's not normalising something that doesn't exist. Most people, as it says with Cancer Research UK, is saying that within a very short time, within 5 years, the number of people who are obese will outnumber those who are of a healthy weight. So it is actually not good for you, but it is normal.
But this trend towards identifying, I'm fat, but I identify as healthy. You can't identify as healthy. You can't be obese and healthy at the same time, which is what people are claiming. There's a healthy at any size movement.
Well, I think it's more of the mindset. So, look, I think that people need to take control of that. I don't believe the government should be saying, we're going to cancel the bog offs. If you want to buy this thing, you should be allowed to buy it. I don't see why. You're quite happy to take the tax from this stuff, so let people get on with it. This is why the government have probably unbanned it, as Tam has said. But actually, it's deeper than that, and people have psychological issues that cause them to eat in that way. I know, I was a trainer, and I gave up training people because I just got sick and tired of people making up stories. I'd say to them, look, so what did you have for breakfast? They go, I'd get them to write a food diary, because a lot of them would say, I don't eat very much, I don't really know I'm fat. It was like that Secret Eaters, if you've ever watched that show, it's hilarious. And these people would say, and then they'd start writing down, cup of tea, do you have any sugar? Yes, how many? 7. 7 sugars in it. Yeah. Then they'd do a perfectly normal thing, but 7 cups of tea during that day. And I would say, well, if you could just cut out the cup of tea or reduce the sugar in the tea, I think your problems would be over. But they don't listen.
Other than a very few number of health disorders,
so it's not
two reasons people are fat. Eating too much, not exercising enough. It's as simple as that.
Well, there's also hormones. Hormones exist. So hormones can be there are hormones that can prohibit you from losing weight as well. There are other psychological factors that the body can...
We're hearing a lot at the moment about it's a cost of living
crisis
and stuff. But Lee Anderson MP was right in this. It's cheaper to buy fresh vegetables and cook them, like you just said, than to buy fast food and processed food. So if people want to live healthily, they can do.
And if it's down to hormones, how come when they go to a place of famine or they liberate a concentration camp, there's nobody in there, all fat, being like, it must be my hormones?
Yeah, but hormones can affect the way your body digests and processes food, for sure, and the way you absorb fat. Right, let's see.
I think it's an excuse.
No, whatever. Right, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice. Let's see what they have to say. It's your opportunity to be on the show and discuss the topics that we're talking about. So let's go near to London. Let's go to London. Why? Let's go to a restaurateur, a cook at a cookery school. How about the owner, Giancarlo Caldessi? Hello, Giancarlo.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. You all right?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, I'm hungry. Looking, I love food. I can't help myself. I'm disguised. I am actually a big fat black mama underneath this, but I do a lot of exercise.
Oh, no, you're not.
So what do you think then? Is the government's strategy of, say, these offers, banning these offers, is this a good strategy? Will it help with the obesity crisis?
Well, I've been in this business a long time, and what I would like to say is that it's really very wrong to advertise all the time, because it's brainwashing people. And genuinely brainwashing, that has an effect. And you cannot walk into a place or a garage, an example, and you have all the time so many sweets to choose from. The actual psychological effect of food displayed, it really plays on our minds. And we need to go back to education of really proper food, provenance of food, and also understand how to cook it. That's my really big point. But advertising all the time, it is really damaging, big time damaging.
So, Giancarlo, then, what about the fact that the government, initially, they were going to ban this buy one, get one free, and now they've decided that they're not going to ban it because of the cost of living crisis? Genuinely, offers like buy one, get one free, do you think that they're bad?
They're bad because they advertise all the time the wrong food. If you buy a packet of crisps, two, you buy one for two. And do you think that's a good lunch or dinner? It's really fundamentally flawed.
It's
Also,
delicious, this
the
sounds.
government should really reconsider how to advertise. The advertisement is done by a big company, which makes a lot of money out of it, and the brainwashing of us, of all of us, is massive. So they really need to reconsider absolutely fundamentally from their soul, not putting things into profitability, but we need to put into health. Health equals wealth. A healthy country is a wealthy country. It always will be, and it is.
Well,
But
listen,
also,
Giancarlo, perhaps they should be like you and advertise your healthy food the way you are. This is a lot of it behind you. Giancarlo, thank you so much for talking to us. It's really
thank you so much for having me.
good to talk to you. That is, of course, Giancarlo Caldesi. He's a restaurateur and owner for the Cookery School. Right, let's quickly, briefly to my panel. You've got about 30 seconds to wrap up then. So buy one, get one free. Good that the government have stopped these adverts now, or bad?
I think there's better stuff to focus on right now with the cost of living crisis, the energy crisis, the war in Ukraine. So, yeah, I mean, fair enough, put it on hold for now. But I think overall it's quite a good idea. But I think fat people should be thinking about what they're doing, because what they're doing when they're eating all that food is taking it away from other people who need that food.
Other fat people. Right, Calvin, briefly.
Let people buy what they want to buy. If you want to have 2 chocolate bars for the price of 1, that's a good thing.
Exactly. Right, well, let's see what you've been saying, because today I've been asking about the government, their tackling of the obesity crisis. Are they doing it correctly? Lots of you brought your views. Claire says it's not the responsibility of the government. It's a matter of personal responsibility. Hear, hear. Darren says, why is it the government's responsibility on what people choose to eat? I second that. Robert says, whenever the government tries to help people reduce weight, it gets criticised. Perhaps those complaining should come up with a workable solution. Well, I would say let people choose, and then if they put on weight, then it's down to them. They should know that that would happen. John says, nonsense question. It implies that it is the government's responsibility to tackle personal choices. It isn't. Thank you for that. Ali says it isn't the government's responsibility to continuously police what people eat. So I would say yes, they're doing it correctly by having minimal interference. Owen says that the government are in the pockets of the food giants. I say ban ultra-processed food. Well, you think they could, but they haven't. There's a poll up on Twitter today throughout the show asking, is the government tackling obesity correctly? And currently, only 30% of you say yes. Roll with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, it's time for our Royal Roundup. Palace sources claim that the Queen and the royal family have secretly opened their doors to Ukrainian refugees. Royals have also made substantial cash donations. All of that has been kept under wraps. First, let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and it's looking cloudy and damp in the northwest, but some evening sunshine further southeast. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England looks to be largely dry this evening with some cloud cover, but a bit of sunshine here and there. Temperatures in Plymouth around 15 Celsius. More bright or sunny spells across London and southeast England this evening, and still quite warm at 7 p.m. A few showers across mid and west Wales this evening, but generally a dry picture here with the best of any sunshine towards Cardiff and Newport. It's largely a dry picture for the Midlands too. That said, there will be a good deal of cloud around, but temperatures still between 18 and 16 degrees. Much of northeast England and Yorkshire should also be dry, with the best of any sunshine towards the east coast. A few splashes of rain is possible over the Pennines. It's generally cloudier skies to be expected over Scotland, with occasional light rain across the south of the country. More persistent wet weather will be moving into western areas. That same area of rain will blow to the northwest of Northern Ireland, but for much of the country, it will be a drier evening. Overnight rain at times across northern and some western areas, dry in the south and east, but some fog patches developing in southern England. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So it's just coming up to 54 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, there is always something going on in the royal household, and this week is no different from any other. We've got the insight that palace sources claim that the Queen and the royal family has secretly opened their doors to Ukrainian refugees. Now, the royals have also made apparently substantial cash donations, but they insist that they want to keep their efforts under wraps. So how on earth would this leak out? Almost 54,000 refugees have arrived under the government scheme, with the royals now joining politicians, business leaders, and, of course, huge numbers of other Britons in offering houses to 6 million people desperately escaping Russian invaders. So I'm joined now by the royal butler, Grant Harold. Grant! I always do that, what was this? So, it's exciting, this, isn't it? So they somehow, it's got out, this secret that they're housing and hosting some refugees.
Yes, and I mean, when they say something's out, it's always possible leaks. Even when I was there, things used to always kind of leak out. But this is obviously a positive thing, because it's shown that the royal family, everyone says that they live in castles, palaces, you know, they could help so many other people that haven't got homes. Well, this is actually them doing it. And obviously, the thing is, the Crown Estate, the Dutch Estate, they're huge estates. You know, they've got many properties to the portfolio. So it's not difficult for them to say, right, we're going to make some of these homes available for refugees. And I think it's a really good move.
I wonder how many they've got there, though.
Well, that'll be the thing. I don't know if they'll ever actually tell it. You never know. I mean, there could be a point they actually suddenly say, this is how many we've taken in and this is what we've done with them. But I don't quite know where, as I say, I'm not exactly sure where they'll end up. I mean, you've also got Prince Charles's Poundbury, so is it possible that some might be down there? But I say the estate is huge and there's many properties as part of that. So.
If you're a refugee from Ukraine and the royal family say, we'll take you in, you'd be like, yeah, all right.
Well, that's the worrying bit. I hope they don't think they're moving into Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle. Who knows? I don't see that happening. Because also from a security point of view, they've got to be careful, because with the royal family, security is very important. So if they have got them within these homes, obviously the reality is there's a security risk. But if it's one of the properties on the estate, that's fine.
Have you seen a lot? You would have seen a lot of these properties on the estate.
I have over the years. I have. I even live in a duchy property. So you know,
you live in a duchy property even now.
Yeah, even now. And
so, what does that mean? The royal family pay for you to live in this house?
No, I'll pay. I'll probably pay them.
So what the duchy property? What does that mean? It means
it's basically owned by the duchy. So the duchy kind of pays, if you like, the wage of the Prince of Wales, if you like. You know, the money that's made from the duchy is what he uses for himself. And when I was there for the boys, and there's obviously a huge amount of properties. One of the funny rules I remember once reading, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it said that if you live in a duchy property and you died without a will, that your contents of your home become part of the duchy estate. I don't know if that is still true, but I think at one time it was. So I always say to anybody I know that lives in kind of duchy properties, make sure you've got your will in order.
So you can buy the duchy property?
No,
you're not allowed
you can.
You can rent it.
You can rent them. I don't know. It's possible that there is some properties that you can probably buy into. I'm sure it is possible, but the one that I'm in is obviously just is rented.
But how do you get hold of that, though? Is it because you've been working with the royal family?
Yeah, exactly. When you've been with the royal family and you get options as well. So
when you leave?
When you leave, yes.
Yeah. Can you come back? Will they let you back? Would you want to go back?
It's a funny one. Yes, I'm sure. I've heard other members of staff sometimes say they've gone back. But, I think when you've been there, and I mean, I was so lucky with the years that I was there. And I know it sounds strange, but I was there when William and Harry were quite young. And, it was great memories. And I don't know how you could I think it'd be different now because obviously they've got their own homes and they've moved out. I think it'd be a very different world now.
What was your fondest memory of hanging out with Harry and Wills?
Probably just the fact that they were down to earth, because I remember going in there thinking this is going to be, it's going to be very, very different to my previous job when I worked for the Dukes of Bedford. But the reality was it was fun, really good fun. And I remember one of my first conversations with Prince William was, what do I call you? I said, how do I address you? And I remember him saying, my name's William. And I thought, okay, that's nice and easy. So I was quite lucky. I feel lucky that I was one of the few that was allowed to call him by his first name. And equally, I feel proud when I see what they've gone on to achieve and what he and Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, what they've done in the last few years.
For a minute there, I thought you were talking about Harry there when you said they, but clearly you didn't mean them, you meant Wills and Kate.
Prince William as well. I mean, I'm equally proud of what Prince Harry's done, but obviously there's positives and negatives with everything that's happened there, unfortunately.
It is, and the Jubilee is on its way.
It is on its way. Not long, we're almost there, and I think everyone's getting quite excited about it. And also, there was concern over the Queen's mobility. But I think she's just proven in recent days that she is very much going to be part of it, without any question.
Well, you would be, wouldn't you? You'd do everything. You'd move heaven and earth to be part of your own Jubilee, especially after it's the reward for the 70 years that she spent on the throne.
Exactly. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited about it. I'm sure it's going to be great memories for everyone, including the Queen.
Well, of course it will be. Listen, Grant, it's always wonderful to see you and lovely hearing all your stories.
Thank you.
Yeah, and obviously you're busy for the Jubilee, so you won't be helping, won't me?
I am. Well, I'm going to be overseas, actually, but I'll be available via video link.
Well, you'll be on a cruise ship, won't you?
I will. I'm hosting Jubilee. I'm doing a Jubilee event on a cruise ship. So.
Oh, much bigger offer than me, then. Thank you so much, Grant. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
That is Grant Harold. He's the former royal butler to Prince Charles and Prince William and Prince Harry. Wow. Right, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is the government tackling obesity crisis properly? Lots of you have been getting in touch. Keep them coming. Now, make sure you get in touch with us all the time here on GB News. We've got loads to come in the next hour. This is GB News. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. On TV, online and on digital radio. Now, for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's exactly 5 o'clock. I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. Labour is calling on Boris Johnson to urgently explain his meetings with Sue Gray to discuss the so-called Partygate report into COVID rule-breaking. It's understood that they met at least once while the report was being drafted. Labour's deputy leader, Angela Rayner, says people deserve to know the truth. Former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt told GB News he wouldn't have introduced lockdowns in the first place.
Would I have done things differently during the pandemic if I had been Prime Minister and won that contest in 2019? For sure. Would I have made some of the mistakes that Boris made? I don't think I would have because of my experience as Health Secretary, but I would have made different mistakes. I think it's impossible to go through something as extreme as a pandemic and get everything right.
Unions are warning of potentially the biggest rail strike in modern history. 40,000 staff from Network Rail and 15 train companies are voting on action over pay. It could create serious challenges in keeping goods moving and supermarket shelves stocked. Supply chain expert Richard Bartlett told GB News it could be bad for the consumer.
Supply chain for the consumer is everything. The whole chain is working. If that chain's not working, or there's a delay, or there's extra costs, there's delays at ports, there's delays everywhere else, it has a huge effect because these are normally ordered within a period of time. They're not ordered tomorrow for next week. They're ordered in advance. And if that advance rule of 3 months starts to slow down, it has a huge effect. And we're certainly seeing that. We're certainly seeing price increases. There's no question about that.
Former Conservative leader Sir Iain Duncan Smith has called for benefits to be boosted in line with inflation to protect the public from mounting living costs. He says the use of rebates and discretionary funds represent a step in the wrong direction for tackling poverty. The government is already handing out £150 council tax rebates for many homes and will take £200 off of energy bills from October. Gavin Rice from the Centre for Social Justice told GB News the government should also boost universal credit.
We're suggesting is something that's a bit more modest, which is just you increase universal credit in line with the rising cost of living. That would be less expensive than the £20 uplift. It would not be, as it were, an absolute increase to generosity, but it would just ensure that the very poorest in our society have got enough coming in that they can cover these extraordinary rises in the cost of electricity and gas.
The Foreign Secretary will meet with a top Democrat later over government plans to scrap parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The International Trade Secretary, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, has already met top Democrat Richard Neal to discuss UK-US trade. It follows a warning from the US House Speaker that Congress won't support a free trade deal with the UK if it discards the post-Brexit agreement. New legislation is expected in early June. Police chiefs are planning to apologise over allegations of racism and discrimination within their ranks. In a report by the Police Chiefs Council, due to be published next week, leaders will commit to being institutionally anti-racist. The report highlights how police powers are being disproportionately applied to black people. It also admits that having only 2 black officers reach Chief Constable or Assistant Commissioner rank in policing's history is a failure. Russia has claimed victory in the battle for Mariupol after Ukrainian soldiers in the final stronghold surrendered. It's now launched a major offensive in Luhansk, where shelling continues as Russian forces press for control of Ukraine's Donbas region. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has declared a travel ban on 963 Americans, including President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and CIA Chief William Burns. Boris Johnson has congratulated Labour's Anthony Albanese on his election as Prime Minister of Australia. Outgoing PM Scott Morrison conceded defeat despite millions of votes yet to be counted. He's also announced that he'll step down as leader of the Liberal Party after losing ground to environment and climate-focused parties like the Greens and Independents. Mr Albanese says his goal is to unite the country.
Australian people have voted for change. I am humbled by this victory, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to serve as the 31st Prime Minister of Australia. My Labor team will work every day to bring Australians together, and I will lead a government worthy of the people of Australia.
This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's get back to Nana Akua.
Good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's Conservative commentator Calvin Robertson and comedian Leo Kearse. Now, still to come this week is the Alzheimer's Action Week. So my difficult conversation today is with a gentleman who's living through having the awful illness. Now, he'll be joining me here in the studio to discuss his experiences. Plus, I'll also be joined by someone from the Alzheimer's Society to see what they hope to achieve with this year's Action Week. And for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? Rishi Sunak is facing growing calls to bring forward large increases in benefits and the state pension in accordance with the inflation to help ease the cost of living crisis. The Chancellor came under intense fire for rejecting calls to raise benefits by more than 3.1%, a figure based on inflation rates in September 2021, when prices first surged. Critics say continuously increasing benefits plunged the UK into even more debt. So coming up for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? GB News is all about you, so get in touch with your views, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me at GBNews. So it's now time for Difficult Conversations, and today it is Dementia Action Week. My difficult conversation is all about this illness. In the UK alone, currently 900,000 people are known to be diagnosed with dementia, meaning more than half of all adults know someone with it. And with diagnosis rates falling to a record 5-year low, the general public are now being encouraged to look out for the early warning signs, as dementia symptoms can often wrongly be blamed on just getting old and delaying the time for people to receive the correct diagnosis. Now, NHS guidelines state that dementia is not a natural part of ageing, and this is why it's important to talk to a GP sooner rather than later if you're worried about memory problems and other symptoms. So I'm joined now in the studio by 59-year-old ex-mechanic who's living with dementia, Eamonn Dobbin. Eamonn, thank you so much for joining me.
Welcome.
Now, I wanted to ask you first of all, so you're very young for somebody to be diagnosed with dementia.
I was diagnosed at 55, or I started my journey at 55 when my memory started playing up. I was forgetting conversations I was having with my partner. I was getting lost on journeys that I knew well. I was also forgetting what I'd watched last night and sometimes what I'd eaten. My partner, lucky enough, has worked in the dementia nursing home set up for 33 years. So she said to me there was something wrong. She arranged for me to go and see my doctor, who was fairly understanding, but thought I was a bit too young for dementia. So I had all the usual blood tests and was then referred to the memory clinic. The memory clinic took several sessions to work out there was a fault with the memory. I was then put onto a neurologist who sent me for a MRI, which showed there was damage to the brain. He later then sent me for a lumbar puncture, which showed there was also protein problems in the brain stem. So I eventually went for a PET scan, which is where they inject you with radioactive material and it gives you the best results for where the damage is. And that showed I had frontal temporal lobal dementia, but also I've got cortical basal disintegration. I have two. The cortical basal disintegration is the one that affects the spine going into the hippocampus underneath the bottom of the brain. The frontal temporal lobal is more behavioural and the physical side, sense of balance is going. I can't walk very far because of the motor skills are deteriorating. So in general, you need to get diagnosed. If you think there is a problem, go and see your doctor. It's best to know beforehand. Our aim in this week is to tell people to go and get looked at to see that they can either rule it out or get something done for them. There's a lot of things I've put in place now. With the diagnosis, I've extra banisters on the stairs, a walk-in shower, an electric mobility bed. Also, I'm very fond of all my electronic gadgets, which now remind me to take my pills. Any conversations that come my way or interviews like today, it will remind me as well. So I do rely on it a considerable deal. The older generation, finding it very difficult. I'm one of the lucky ones. I was diagnosed early. There is no cure for this disease, but with the right medication, it can make it a lot more comfortable to be with. I am hopefully going to get more people to come out and take a look.
Now, the medication that you're taking then, is it a lot to take, and what does it do for you?
I take 10 tablets a day.
Wow.
6 in the morning, 4 at night, including a sleeping tablet. What it does for me is it chills me out. It winds you down, stops you getting stressed. Because of the frontal temporal lobal dementia, it's a behavioural variant which can cause you to have a very short temper very quickly and get very stressed by the simplest of things. And I was getting that way, and it wasn't fair on my partner. So the medication I'm on now is basically, I'm chilled. I don't get stressed. I can look at life from a slightly different perspective now.
And for you being diagnosed so young, I mean, it must have been quite a shock to hear that that's what the diagnosis was, or were you prepared? Because obviously, as you said, your partner is in that field, and did she tell you what she thought? Did she give you the inklings of what she was thinking?
She gave me the inklings, but she said we'd have to wait for definite to get the answer. It was a weight off my shoulders, to be quite honest, because I could then understand what was going wrong and why I was behaving in certain mannerisms, and I could then get the medication so I could actually calm down and live life much more comfortably.
And in your everyday life now, are you working? I mean, you were a mechanic before. What are you doing? So every day, is it?
My routine is I am medically retired. They took my driving licence off me within the first 7 days, so I couldn't drive anymore. Couldn't get around. I rely on my partner to drive me around, but eventually I give up and I got myself a mobility scooter. And I got some independence back. And if my partner's come home from a night shift and is in bed, I haven't got to rely on waiting for her to get up. I can hop out and get whatever I want to do. I can even go to the local lakes and parks and just chill.
Yeah.
So it works for me now.
It's good to hear, and you're looking well on it. And to be honest, you're extremely eloquent, Eamonn, so it's really good to talk to you. Let's have a chat now, because I want to have a chat to Sian Blackham. She's a senior media manager at the Alzheimer's Society. She's on her way. She'll be here in a moment. I might as well just carry on chatting to you, Eamonn, because Sian's supposed to be there, but she's not. But never mind, we'll come back to her. Your everyday life. So for you, it must have been very frightening, though, being told you have, what is it? Is it dementia? Is it Alzheimer's? A lot of people don't.
A lot of people are confused. Alzheimer's is the disease where the blood circulating the brain is damaged by either stroke or a heart attack. There's 106 different variations on dementia. Each one is different, infecting different parts of the brain. The frontal temporal lobal one is very rare, or fairly rare, whereas the last one is 1 in 10,000. I'm on the medications. It doesn't slow it down.
Right.
It doesn't stop it, because there is no slowing down or stopping it. But it makes my life more comfortable. There's no mental stress, no pain. In general, I can get on with just living at home and doing everyday things. The one thing I will say is, once you are diagnosed, there's a lot of stigma with the disease. It's not contagious as far as I know, but a lot of my friends just disappeared. Don't talk to me, or didn't know how to talk to me about it. But I have a couple of friends that keep in touch on a regular basis, and my brother phones me every day. On weekends, every so often, once a month, he's got a caravan on the Kent coast, and he takes me away for the weekend for peace and quiet.
Beautiful.
So he gets a break, and I get a break, and my partner gets a break. So, yeah, it works.
It works. So we'll speak to Sian now. I think we've got her now. She's a senior media manager at the Alzheimer's Society. Sian, thank you so much for joining us. Now, I know that this Awareness Week for you is really about encouraging people to know the signs of dementia. Because, as Eamonn said, he was fortunate his partner worked in that area, so she was able to see the signs. But for those who are listening or watching now, what are the main things that people should be looking out for?
This Dementia Action Week, Alzheimer's Society has done some research around the things that people may be confusing as a natural part of ageing. So forgetting, asking the same questions over and over again. It's not getting old, it's getting ill. And that's the message of our campaign this Dementia Action Week. So we want people to find out more about the symptoms. So they include asking the same question over and over again, forgetting the names of familiar people or familiar places or objects, and doing that regularly. I mean, we all have those moments where we might forget someone's name, but if you're doing that regularly and it's someone you know really well, that could be something to be concerned about. Also, finding it hard to complete familiar tasks. So if someone's struggling to make a cup of tea, something they've done every day for years and years, but they're really struggling with those sort of everyday tasks that normally they found very easy to do. It's where things are really having an impact on your everyday life that you really need to consider, could this be dementia, and not sort of fob it off as, oh, you know, it's just a natural part of aging. Because that's one of the main things really, is people have been put off getting a diagnosis because they think, oh, it's just a natural part of aging, the memory problems I'm experiencing, but it's not. It could be an illness, it could be dementia. So we were asking people to really find out more. They can visit our website, alzheimers.org.uk, /memory loss. And we've actually developed a symptom checker to help people sort of prepare themselves to speak to the doctor and sort of, see the sorts of things that are affecting them and talk that through with their doctor. But there's lots of information on our website. So we really encourage people to visit there or to call us to get some help and support, because we're here for people.
Sian, are there any real treatments that can help people? Is it because, as Eamonn said, there is no cure? I mean, we're all aware there isn't a cure, and his medication doesn't slow anything down. Is there anything that's coming up in the pipeline that we know of that is encouraging?
There are things in the pipeline, but dementia research is dramatically underfunded, and we really need to invest more in that. We want the government to double the investment in research, and that's something that they promised to do, which we really want them to follow through on. There are treatments available which can, like Eamonn said, help some people maintain some of their skills for longer and to live better for longer. But there's also support from Alzheimer's Society and other organisations. There's things you can do around planning for the future. So whilst there is no cure for dementia, having a diagnosis doesn't mean the end of your life. And, there are things you can do to continue having a fulfilling life. So I think a lot of people may be frightened or dismissing some of the symptoms and signs, but there is support available for people.
OK, and Sian, just remind us again of that website if people are concerned for that symptom checker. What's the website?
Sure, it's alzheimers.org.uk /memory loss.
Sian Blackham, thank you so much for joining me. She's the Senior Media Manager at the Alzheimer's Society. Lovely to talk to her. And in the studio joining me now, of course, is Eamonn Dobbin, who's dealing with his condition at the moment. It's so good that you've come to speak about it, because I know a lot of people watching may have somebody or a relative who they're caring for who is suffering with this. And how are you coping with your family as well? Are they coping OK with it?
It is difficult. I have 3 sons. One stays in contact very regularly. The other 2 hardly contact at all. They're not happy or know how to deal with the disease. What they fail to realise is, once you get your diagnosis, you're no different than you were the day before.
Of course.
You don't get wrapped in cotton wool. You don't not do this and not do that. You do what you can while you can. Otherwise, you lose the ability and the will to live. I got in touch with the Alzheimer's about 2 weeks after I was diagnosed, and it gave me a purpose. It gave me a reason. And now I can do what I'm doing now, putting forward the idea that more people are diagnosed. I feel that I'm making it better for the next generation. That's what my project in life is.
Eamonn, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Do what you can when you can. That is Eamonn Dobbin, fabulous, fabulous man. He's dealing with Alzheimer's. If you want to find out more, don't forget to check out that website. You can get all of the information via the GB News app. Now, coming up, it's the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? Rishi Sunak is facing growing calls to bring forward large increases in benefits and state pensions in accordance with the inflation to help ease the cost of living. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, came under intense fire for rejecting calls to raise benefits by more than 3.1%, a figure based on inflation rates in September 2020, when prices were first surging. But critics say continuously increasing benefits plunges the UK into even more debt. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? First, let's get some weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and it's looking cloudy and damp in the northwest, but some evening sunshine further southeast. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England looks to be largely dry this evening, with some cloud cover, but a bit of sunshine here and there. Temperatures in Plymouth around 15 Celsius. More bright or sunny spells across London and southeast England this evening, and still quite warm at 7 p.m. A few showers across mid and west Wales this evening, but generally a dry picture here with the best of any sunshine towards Cardiff and Newport. It's largely a dry picture for the Midlands too. That said, there will be a good deal of cloud around, but temperatures still between 18 and 16 degrees. Much of northeast England and Yorkshire should also be dry, with the best of any sunshine towards the east coast. A few splashes of rain is possible over the Pennines. It's generally cloudier skies to be expected over Scotland, with occasional light rain across the south of the country. More persistent wet weather will be moving into western areas. That same area of rain will blow to the northwest of Northern Ireland, but for much of the country, it will be a drier evening. Overnight rain at times across northern and some western areas, dry in the south and east, but some fog patches developing in southern England. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 25 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now it's time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? Rishi Sunak is facing growing calls to bring forward large increases in benefits and the state pension in accordance with inflation to help ease the cost of living crisis, particularly energy bills. Now, the Chancellor came under intense fire for rejecting calls to raise benefits by more than 3.1%, a figure that was based on inflation rates in September 2021, when prices first surged. Now, currently, benefits will not be increased again until April 2023. And when pressed on the issue, Boris Johnson told reporters this: "I'm not going to pretend that we can magic away every single expense that people are going to face as a result of the global spike in energy prices. Be in no doubt that this will come down. We will get people through it. We will use the firepower that we've built up to put our arms around people just as we did during the pandemic." So what do you think? Should the poorest in society put their faith in Boris and Rishi? Would increasing benefits put money in pockets or plunge us into more debt? For our Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? So I'm joined now by the former leader of the Conservative Party and MP for Chingford and Woodford Green, Sir Iain Duncan Smith. Thank you so much, Iain, for joining me this afternoon. So firstly,
No problem.
what is your view on this? Should benefits allowance rise with the rate of inflation?
Well, first of all, I also ran the Work and Pensions Department as Secretary of State, and I was heavily enmeshed in the reforms that brought through universal credit. So I have a pretty close knowledge of how they can do this and what they should do. So my view is very clearly, and we published a report from the Centre for Social Justice today, which makes it very clear that the biggest problem we face right now is not a sort of stark choice. Is it debt or is it putting not moving benefits? The truth is right now the economy faces a significant challenge where we may see very severe fall off in growth, even leading to a recession. That would be a disaster when you couple that with inflation. So you should and must increase the benefits going out to those who are in need, because they're the poorest in society and less likely to be able to have any savings, etc., to get through this. And this spike in inflation has been very sudden and very rapid, and it's likely to go at least to around about 10 or 11% before flattening out. So they do need that support. Their up rate was about 3.1% based on where the figure was last September. And so it's important this time round to bring it up to speed during the course of this spike before it starts to fade away. The second point to make about this is that it's not just helping people on benefits, which you can do through universal credit and the other benefits. It's also about helping those who are, I'd call the squeeze middle, people who are in work off benefits, but in areas where they have no savings, and they themselves will find their incomes directly squeezed. We need to keep the economy growing, which is absolutely critical, and therefore you need to lower taxes and actually assist those on benefits. And it won't lead to extra debt. The government has the headroom. 2 years running, they've outperformed their own forecasts by 91 and 90 billion respectively, nearly 200 billion, better than they were expected to be 2 years ago. So this is money that can be used for this purpose without increasing borrowing.
About to ask where the money will come from, but they could do it through that then. What about then the idea, so this whole, the fact that the threshold for national insurance has changed, which means that people are paying more, is that a good way? It's a tax in the end, really. Is that a good way of taxing people? Because surely it will end up shrinking the economy, which is the last thing you want, because people won't go out and spend things.
Yes, as I said, I'm very keen on lowering taxation. Taxation is now too high. I understand why, coming out of pandemic, that they were trying to claw back some money, but they now need to lower tax. You need to match your policy with the real life that people live, not the one that you would wish they would live. So that's absolutely critical. There are other areas, too, that they could look at. There's VAT, for example, also on fuel. And one area I would certainly recommend is suspending the green levies that at the moment have probably added a 20% cost to most fuel bills. Suspending those would have a direct effect on a number of people, particularly those on very low incomes, because they represent a much bigger proportion of their expenditure and their spending power. So these are areas that can be done. People say, well, we shouldn't because, it's all about going green and net zero. Yes, we want to get to net zero, but, you can't do it on the back of those who are unable to pay. So what we should do is cut our cloth in accordance with the nature of where we find ourselves. Right now, we should be able to postpone that. And as we bring inflation down and as those costs start to come down, we can, if necessary, and that's what people want, reimpose it. But we mustn't be ideological about this.
Your view on the windfall tax?
Well, I think it's a bit of a red herring. It's an argument that doesn't bring very much in, even if you were to bring them relative to the sort of sums of money I'm talking about. But it also talks about raising taxes on business. And, a few years ago when the oil companies were in deep difficulty because investment in carbon fuels had fallen, the government didn't step in to bail them out, nor should I expect them to. So, in a way, this money that they make at the moment, unexpected as it was, can be ploughed back in almost immediately into making sure that we obtain more of our own gas and oil from the UK reserves, which are huge, and particularly also start to extract shale gas. We should get security of energy supply should be a priority for us, even through this pandemic, because being reliant on other countries, as Germany is finding to its cost because of the Russians and their invasion of Ukraine, and often others because of dubious countries maybe in the Middle East, it's far better if we can get security of supply here, and we have plenty of it. And that requires investment from the private sector. So whatever else the government decides, and that's up to them, I think actually the key thing is they already have headroom to make these tax reductions, tax cuts, and to provide more money for those on low pay.
So just finally then, why do you think they haven't been prepared to do that?
I think there is an element of groupthink, I'm afraid, going on in the Bank of England and in the Treasury. The bank, because they should have been tackling inflation over a year ago, they carried on printing huge sums of money, what they call quantitative easing, which basically means they're buying up a huge amount of shares and bonds, etc., using our taxpayers' money. And so the reality is that they should have stopped that. That was pump priming inflation domestically. And also the Treasury now is worried that they think if you release more money into people's hands, that they will spend it. This will fuel inflation. But the truth is really that they've got this wrong, because domestic inflation isn't the significant problem here. After all, most of this spike is caused by the post-pandemic demand outstripping supply, and therefore we've got to try and provoke industry to provide more, to supply more, to be able to meet that demand, and that would get inflation down. But it's a global issue. Every other country is facing it. And, of course, the invasion of Ukraine by that brute Putin, but that has meant that the fuel and oil isn't reaching the West in the way that it was. And so that has also made supply shorter than demand. So getting that sorted out is critical, but a lot of it's outside of the UK. They worry that that will spike inflation. I don't think inflation is the problem right now, because it should now flatten towards the end of this year and plateau through a large chunk of next year before starting to come down. So raising inflation, rather raising interest rates, is the right thing to do at the moment. But you can't have high tax and high inflation, high interest rates, because that will be crippling to the economy. So get tax down.
Well, thank you so much to Iain Duncan Smith. Really good to talk to you. He's the MP and former leader of the Conservative Party. Thank you so much for joining me. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue with our Great British debate. I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? We'll hear the thoughts of my panel, Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and also comedian Leo Kearse. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
It's 5:33. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Labour is calling on Boris Johnson to urgently explain his meeting with Sue Gray regarding the so-called Partygate report. It's understood that the two have met at least once to discuss COVID rule-breaking while the report was being drafted. The Foreign Secretary is meeting with a top Democrat over government plans to scrap parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol. It follows the US House Speaker's warning that Congress won't support a free trade deal with the UK if it discards the post-Brexit agreement. Unions are warning of potentially the biggest rail strike in modern history as 40,000 staff members from Network Rail and 15 train companies vote on action over pay. Network sources say it could create serious challenges in keeping goods moving and supermarket shelves stocked. Former Conservative leader Sir Iain Duncan Smith has called for benefits to be boosted in line with inflation to shield against mounting living costs. He says rebates and discretionary funds represent a step in the wrong direction for tackling poverty, arguing it would be better to uplift universal credit. 2 people have been taken to hospital after a stand collapsed during a Trooping the Colour rehearsal in London this morning. 3 others were treated at the scene by paramedics in Horse Guards Road. Witnesses say crowds were evacuated by the emergency services and that the ceremony was cut short. Outgoing Prime Minister Scott Morrison has conceded defeat in Australia's national elections. That's despite millions of votes yet to be counted. Boris Johnson congratulated Labour's incoming Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. He says his goal is to unite the country. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Nana.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
If you just joined us, where have you been? It's just gone 38 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. Now it is time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? Chancellor Rishi Sunak is facing a lot of calls now to bring forward large increases in benefits and the state pension in accordance with inflation to help ease the cost of living crisis, particularly energy bills. As we know, they're rising. Now, the Chancellor came under intense fire for rejecting calls to raise benefits by more than 3.1%, a figure that he based on inflation rates in September 2021, when prices first surged. Currently, benefits will not be increased until April 2023. And when he was pressed with the issue, Boris Johnson told reporters, "I'm not going to pretend that we can magic away every single expense that people are going to face as the result of the global spike in energy prices. Be in no doubt this will come down. We will get people through it. We will use the firepower that we've built up to put our arms around people, just as we did during the pandemic." So what do you think? Should the poorest in society put their faith into Boris and Rishi? Would increasing benefits put money in people's pockets, or would it plunge us into more debt? For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should benefits rise with inflation? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and also comedian Leo Kearse. Right, I'm going to start with you, Leo.
Yeah, why? What are you thinking? Because I'm Scottish. I'm going to know about benefits. Well, you're absolutely right, Nana. I do think
that was my reasoning.
I do think benefits should rise with inflation. When people are facing a triple whammy of but the issue. The thing that the government's got to do is you can't solve this problem with money. The problem is that there's not enough energy and there's not enough food. So that's why, and there's not enough stuff for people to buy. So they need to secure energy sources. As Iain Duncan Smith said, we need to develop. We're sitting on all this oil and all this gas in the UK. North Sea oil, we've got shale gas. So we need to start fracking. We need to develop. The Campbell field is sitting there, and the North Sea could provide us with all the oil we need. And we also need to secure the food. There's 20 million tonnes of grain in silos in Ukraine that they can't get out because Russia's blockading the ports. We need to get anti-ship missiles to destroy Russia's Black Sea fleet and get that grain out, because it needs to go to the rest of the world as well.
World War III.
No, that would end World War III. But we
might
need
end the world, actually, to be honest.
What Putin's doing by blockading that grain, so if that grain doesn't get to Africa, doesn't get to the Middle East, that means that he's trying to trigger a new migration wave of starving people to come into Europe.
I do think that at that point, I think the world has to step in, because it's no longer just being, targeted in Ukraine. And once, of course, he blocks off the Ukraine from the sea, then we've got problems, because nothing will be coming out of there at all. And he'll, again, not only own the food, but also own the energy. And we can't have that. Calvin?
Can I just say how refreshing it was to hear Sir Iain Duncan Smith just there, a proper Conservative, a grown-up politician. I forgot what those days were like. But he's absolutely right. We need to decrease taxes, lower taxes, so people get to keep more of the money they earn. We need to scrap these green levies, scrap these green policies that are taking money away from people again. And this idea that Boris Johnson wants to put his arms around the country, I hate it. I find it repellent. Not because of him, but because the government isn't there to suffocate the people. The government should get out of the way and let people get on with things and let the economy thrive. He's got it back to front. He doesn't understand conservative policies, which is why, Centre for Social Justice, the report we're talking about, they are so good at this thing. CSJ, the TPA, the IEA, they all have sound policy suggestions. We have a conservative government with lots of good centre-right think tanks. Take the policies, implement them for goodness sake. It's straightforward.
So should the benefits and pensions rise with inflation after listening to what Iain Duncan Smith said?
I would go with his recommendations, absolutely.
Yeah. Otherwise, would you have not said that if he hadn't said those things?
My principal suggestion is lower taxes rather than increase benefits. I think we need to be looking more at how to get people off benefits. They should always be a temporary measure.
But we've got very low unemployment rates in this country at the moment. I think it's 3.6% unemployed. It's basically, it's almost at an all-time low. I mean, that's partly thanks to Brexit, which people never give thanks to.
But the issue of inflation is simply caused probably by the aftermath of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Well, supply and demand mainly, which is the issue that we're finding, and then obviously the energy
and also
prices
the overspend as well. The government, Rishi Sunak just tried to spend his way out of a pandemic, and they borrowed more money than we've ever borrowed in history. We've spent more money than we've spent in a long, long time. So, of course, there's going to be a problem financially following that.
Well, Iain Duncan Smith seemed to think that we were actually in quite a healthy position and that the country could actually afford that and it wouldn't come directly from our coffers. But let's see what you think, because the show would be nothing without your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, your opportunity to be on the show and tell us what you think about what we're discussing. This hour, let's go over to Watford. Let's hear from David Barn. Right, let's see what he thinks. David, should benefits rise with the rate of inflation?
Hi, Nana. I actually thought they already were. I thought there was inflation-linked benefits. So I was quite surprised by that, because pensions were supposed to be anyway. But I agree, there's so many things that they can do to reduce the burden, like green taxes. But also, whilst the petrol companies, which is one of the real problems, haven't passed on the savings that they've been given by the government because they said they need to spend more, but actually they bought the oil previously, so it's been about profiteering as far as I can see, and they're not really being helpful to the country.
Well, it does seem that way. David, thank you so much for your thoughts. I'll leave it there because your audio is slightly muffled, but it's lovely to talk to you. That's what David says. So final thoughts then. Should they rise with inflation?
Yeah, they should, and government should cut spending as well. Like places like the Arts Council. Why are bus drivers and cleaners being taxed to pay for ballet dancers and opera singers?
It was interesting as well what Iain Duncan Smith said about the windfall tax as well. I was all for it, but listening to him, I'm sort of reconsidering. Your thoughts finally then?
We've had years and years of austerity measures, and we've just reversed it all. So we need to go back to spending within our means.
Go back to spending within our means. Thank you for that, Calvin, and thank you for all your thoughts coming in. Now let's move stateside, because the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has warned that unilateral UK legislation affecting the Northern Ireland Protocol could endanger British prospects for a free trade deal with the US. Pelosi bluntly worded her intervention, and it came 2 days after the UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss confirmed that the government was planning to table legislation that could nullify parts of the protocol by exempting some goods moving between Great Britain and Ireland from EU customs checks. If that doesn't make any sense to you, well, let's speak to the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudridge, who joins me now live from Los Angeles. Wow, Paul, Nancy Pelosi stepping in. She's holding us hostage. Should she be getting involved, and is she right?
Well, no, she's not right. I'll do these in reverse order. No, she's not right. She's welcome to step in. I mean, America likes to stick his nose into every international situation. And look how successful it was when Obama stuck his interest into the 2016 referendum. So that bodes well for outcomes of listening to American leaders. I shouldn't worry too much, because I don't actually think that Nancy Pelosi will be Speaker after January 2023, because we do have the midterm elections coming up in November. Just in a few months' time. So some of this is actually posturing for the Irish vote, this mythical Irish vote in the United States. She is actually beginning electioneering herself, using this as a way to garner votes for the midterm elections.
She hasn't really got much power, to be honest, with what, as you say, she's just trying to make herself look good or look powerful. What about, I wanted to briefly ask you about Joe Biden, because I'm hearing talk of impeachment and things like that. Is that what the talk is there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, impeachment on a good day. This is the thing. As I mentioned, we have the midterm elections coming up in November. And now these usually sound like, from a British commentator point of view, they sound like a very dry thing. It's like, OK, it's a little bit like the local elections in the UK. It's just a way of giving the administration a kicking. Not this time round. Trump has taken over the Republican Party. The Republican Party is, to all intents and purposes, now the MAGA party. It is going to be coming in and holding the purse strings and taking over the House in November. The new Congress will be implemented in January 2023. And the first things you will see will be committees to investigate the 2020 election results, committees to look at Hunter Biden's laptop, and a committee with the sole intention of impeaching President Biden with an asterisk.
Yeah, he needs to go. Listen, Paul, it's so good to talk to you. That is Paul Dudgewood. He's the host of the Politics People podcast. He's there live from Los Angeles. Right, well, briefly, let's come to my panel very briefly with regard to America. Nancy Pelosi stepping in. You've got about 30 seconds, Calvin. What do you think?
None of her business. Also, why is she aligning herself with that side when she should be supporting the British government because we are strong allies? What is her business? What's her agenda here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with Calvin, but it's also interesting to hear about Trump returning to the political fold. He is. And it sounds like he's let everything just go under the bridge and he's not holding on to any grudges.
No.
That should be fun.
I can't wait to see it. Right, well, it is now time for our quick fire quiz. This is the top part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other stories hitting the headlines right now. I'm joined by Conservative commentator Calvin Robinson and also comedian Leo Kearse. Now, they've both got a buzzer, so Leo, go for yours first. What does it sound like? That's Leo. Calvin? Right, let's do it. Question 1. Please play along at home. 29-year-old dad of 2, Tony Garnett, made the front page of The Sun today. But for what reason? Was it A, he sailed across the Atlantic? Was it B, a funny-shaped asteroid fell in his garden? Or was it C, he fell in love with a Ukrainian refugee? Oh, I think that was Leo. Leo, was it?
Yeah, C, he fell in love with a Ukrainian refugee.
No, that is correct. The cheek of it, honestly. I read this and I thought, just listen, 10 days, only 10 days it took him after welcoming the 22-year-old into the family home. The security guard walked out on his partner and is currently in the process of planning the rest of their lives together.
Jeez.
Oh, what do you think of that, Leo? Well, you got it
10 days?
What are you talking about? You got married in 6 weeks, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't 10 days. And also, I didn't leave my wife to marry a new wife.
It was pretty quick, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was quick, but when you find the right person, you know.
Well, there you go, then.
Yeah,
so how do you think
I'll never walk out on her.
So, well, you better not. So what do you think, then? Presumably you agree with this.
What, I agree with somebody walking out in their family? No, absolutely not. I mean, have some shame, have some dignity, have some responsibility. Just like, I don't know, it seems there's a lot of creepy men out there who've been trying to invite Ukrainian women into their homes, and this reminds me of that.
Calvin?
It's adultery, isn't it? It's a sin. It's immoral. Simple.
Yeah, simple as that. Simple as. Yeah, it is out of order, isn't it? But she should have thought about that. I'd be a 22-year-old, you could forget that. Right, question 2. Well, I'd get a 22-year-old male Ukrainian to come in then, see how he likes that.
They'll be fighting.
Well, they might.
Well, they will if they go into your house.
They might not like me, they might not fancy me either, which would be a bit annoying. Right, question 2. A married couple from Gloucester went public this week after becoming Britain's biggest ever Euro Millions winners. But what was the first thing that the husband said to his wife before revealing the big news? Is it A, I'm leaving you? Is it B, I've got a secret? Or is it C, honey, we're going to need a bigger house? Calvin?
I reckon A. It's a theme growing here.
You think I'm leaving you?
Yeah.
Leo, what would you have said?
I think it's B, I've got a secret.
I've got a secret. Well, let's see. The answer is it's B.
Well done.
I've got a secret. That's very worrying, to be honest, when somebody says that. Yes, Joe Thwaite says that he didn't wake his wife straight away and then said, I've got a secret. I've got something to tell you. After scooping 184 million with a lucky dip ticket. Would you tell anyone if you won the lottery, Calvin?
Absolutely. I'd tell all my friends and family straight away. We'd have a big party. It'd be amazing.
Is it after you've cashed in the ticket, though, only then?
No, I'd be spending it before I got it.
Really? What about you, Leo?
I don't think I would, because I mean, think of all everybody's going to be in touch, and also everybody's you're not going to be able to trust people anymore.
People
Why
who
not?
can help though.
Well, what if you? So can
Yeah.
you make a promise here? If you won, say, over 100 million, would you give me $1 million?
No.
I've asked.
See, it's already started.
I've
Haven't
used
you?
it.
If you needed it,
I might
Nana,
as well.
if I won 100 million and you needed $1 million, of course I would give you.
Yeah, same. I would do the same for you, but as for you,
I wouldn't.
well, you wouldn't. I wouldn't give you anything either. Right. Well, let's see. Question 3. In my head, I thought I might win that, and I was sort of working out what I'd spend it on. I said I'd probably give away maybe 30 million of it. No, I didn't even play the thing.
You're not going to win it if you don't play.
Yeah, you know, but that night
That's
I
not
was
how it
so
works.
annoyed with myself that I didn't go and get a ticket. So annoyed. They took my winnings. You took my winnings. Sorry, question 3. Consumer Group, which analysed the prices for more than 21,000 groceries at 8 supermarkets, comparing the costs for December last year to the end of February this year. Now, during their findings, they discovered that a 500-gram box of Kellogg's Crunchy Nut at Tesco had risen significantly, but by how much? Right, let's see. How much do you think? How much has it gone up by? Go on, give me.
75 pence.
75p?
£1.25.
£1.25. Closest answer wins. Let's see. Well, 21%. I wouldn't have said it was a percentage. I can't work that out. How much did you say? I don't know how much the thing costs in the first place.
I don't know.
Alex?
Let's try again. It's not Alex.
Oh, Lewis.
Yeah. No, well, what we should have said by what percentage. Sadly, we didn't. The answer is 21%. If you're good at maths at home, work it out who was closest. I haven't got a calculator. So Asda's own label, Close Cut mushrooms had also risen by the same percentage, and Cathedral City Extra Mature Cheddar had also risen by 21% at Ocado. Are you surprised?
No, that's kind of in line with the inflation I've seen.
That's a big jump, though, isn't it? 20-odd%. That's ridiculous.
I filled my car up, my little C1. Usually, a full tank, I can get about, £35, 37. If it goes to 45, 43, I'm thinking, where is this place? Am I on a motorway? Today, I filled it up at an Asda pump. Guess how much I paid?
How much?
What do you think, Cal?
30.
No, it was 37 before. It can't go down.
47.
No.
49?
No. £60.
£60.
I know.
Double.
I sucked my teeth. It was a natural thing. I can't do it unless I'm really cross.
Did you fill it with champagne or something?
No, I didn't. Right, question 4. True or false? Cultural Secretary Nadine Dorries was in the news earlier after she admitted sharing her Netflix account with 3 other households. True or Calvin?
True.
And I just say you buzzed before.
Darn.
It's actually false, Leo.
I do love Nadine Dorries, though. She's
false. Yes, how many
It's the
accounts
kind of
was
thing
it?
she would do. Oh, so she did do it, but with a different number of people.
It was actually 4.
That's a trick question. That's a trick question.
No, but I said no.
I've got one of them.
That's awful.
It was 4. No, it's not awful. It's a fact. It was 4, she said, talking about the recent share price collapse at Netflix. Nadine said that she went to say that the streaming service was an incredibly generous system. Right, so let's see. Let's go to the last question, question 5. An independent review commissioned by the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, is to be published in the coming weeks, suggesting that the legal age to buy cigarettes should be increased in Britain to what age? Is it A, 21, B, 25, or C, 30? Calvin?
21.
21. Let's see if he's correct. It's A, he's right, it's 21. Absolutely right. The Telegraph also reported the review will also suggest slapping new taxes on tobacco profits in a bid to cut the habit by 2030. So what do you think? Is it a long time coming?
It's stupid. New taxes, more taxes. It's not going to stop anyone from smoking. If people want to smoke, they're going to smoke, aren't they? It's not about stopping them. It's about getting more money. Be honest. You're being greedy. That's what it is.
Leah?
The cigarettes are so expensive now. I mean, that's not the reason I quit smoking, but I mean, they are so ridiculously expensive. It's just going to drive the black market in illegally made cigarettes.
Well, I quit smoking because somebody told me that I'd get lips like an anus. Doing that, and that's why I did it. I can say that because it's a fact. It's true. I think I can say that. It's a biological part. Right, on today's show, apologies if anyone was offended, by the way. On today's show, we've been asking, is the government tackling the obesity crisis correctly? According to our poll, 31% of you say yes. Only 68% say no. Well, listen, I've got to say thank you so much to my fabulous panel, Conservative commentator Calvin Robertson and also comedian Leo Kearse. And as ever, thank you to you at home for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow at 4 for another edition. I'm over here. I'll leave you with the weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and it's looking cloudy and damp in the northwest, but some evening sunshine further southeast. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England looks to be largely dry this evening with some cloud cover, but a bit of sunshine here and there. Temperatures in Plymouth around 15 Celsius. More bright or sunny spells across London and southeast England this evening, and still quite warm at 7 p.m. A few showers across mid and west Wales this evening, but generally a dry picture here with the best of any sunshine towards Cardiff and Newport. It's largely a dry picture for the Midlands too. That said, there will be a good deal of cloud around, but temperatures still between 18 and 16 degrees. Much of northeast England and Yorkshire should also be dry, with the best of any sunshine towards the east coast. A few splashes of rain is possible over the Pennines. It's generally cloudier skies to be expected over Scotland, with occasional light rain across the south of the country. More persistent wet weather will be moving into western areas. That same area of rain will blow to the northwest of Northern Ireland, but for much of the country, it will be a drier evening. Overnight rain at times across northern and some western areas, dry in the south and east, but some fog patches developing in southern England. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable, and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.